It's Shellcast, the podcast that's a beach break for your ears. Listen along as we discover the best of Southwest Florida and Shellcast, the official podcast of the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel. We're located along the Gulf Coast, about 2 hours south of Tampa in Lee County, Florida. I'm your host, Jackie Parker, and today I'm visiting Manatee Park. I'd like to introduce you to Laura Carr.
Laura is a parks and recreation specialist here at Manatee Park.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming out today.
So tell us about Manatee Park, and we're just sort of walking along here, and tell us what we're going to do today.
So Manatee Park is situated along Palm Beach Boulevard. It's a little bit east of the interstate off of exit 141. We're right across the street from the Florida Power and Light Power Plant. The park itself is actually situated on Florida Power and Light land. So manatees are attracted here to the warm water that's discharged from the power plant across the street.
And this is a county park. This isn't a national park. This is run by Lee County.
The amazing thing is, back in the late 80s and 90s, we had high school students as part of the Monday group, an environmental component of the Lee County high school system, and they petitioned county commissioners to turn this place into a park.
Oh, wow.
So the park itself opened in 1996. The neat thing about this park is we do get manatees. So on the north side of the road is the Florida Power and Light Power Plant. They draw in water from the Kusatchee River behind them, and that water is used to cool off their equipment as they're generating electricity. That warm water is discharged under pipes underneath Palm Beach Boulevard, and the pipes discharge water into the canal here where the park is situated.
And we're walking through this lovely park, and it's open year-round, and we're looking out over this lagoon, or would you call it a canal?
Right here is the canal. As we walk down a little bit farther, we'll see the lagoon. So as we start here at the north end of the park, you'll see the water swirling. That's where the water is coming out of those discharge pipes from the power plant. So here in the park right now, this time of year, the water in the canal is roughly 80 degrees or so. Manatees are typically coming to the park when the water temperature out in the Gulf of Mexico is below 68 degrees. So they're coming here to get warm. Manatees look like they should be really warm. They look like they should have a lot of blubber, but in fact, they really don't. So in the way that we search out warm clothes, hot chocolate, hot coffee, they search out for warm water. So right now, today, unfortunately, we've had some warm weather. So it's warm enough that manatees don't necessarily have to come to the park, although I saw a few when I was walking around a few minutes ago.
And so we're walking the steps down to get closer to the water, and we're going to look around, and the water is swirling here. And we're just going to sort of be on the lookout for manatees. And the temperature outside, it's about 70 degrees right now. So it's a little bit on the warmer side. And you were saying that the water temperature is, what, 80?
The water temperature here in the canal is roughly 80 degrees, yes.
Okay.
So when we get the cold fronts from up north, those cold fronts come down. They cool off the water out in the Gulf of Mexico, Estero Bay, Pine Island Sound, where all the manatees are hanging out. And so as that water temperature starts dropping below 68 or hovering close to it, they will start searching out warmer water. One of the neat things about moms, so when calves are born, calves stay with their moms for about the first 2 years of their lives. One of the things that moms teach them is where to find warm water. So we'll see a lot of moms and their calves coming here. And then as the calves wean away from mom, they know where to go in the future. And then if they're females and they have calves, they'll again teach their young the same thing.
It's kind of the manatee moms are taking their babies on field trips, basically.
Essentially, yeah. So moms will show their calves where to go to find food, where again to come and find warm water, kind of how to behave like a manatee in the way that human parents and other parents of other animal offspring will do the same for their children.
So to see a lot of manatees, it's best to come when the weather is cooler.
That's correct. So typically if you were home, at least for me, so I live in Florida, I'm used to the heat, I'm not as used to the cold. So on cold days when I would rather stay inside and probably bundle up and read a book, those are the best days to come out here to the park. So again, manatees are coming here to get warm. Their waters out in the Gulf are cold enough that they don't survive well out there, so they're seeking that warm water refuge. And those are good days to see them. We had some really nice, cooler weather, somewhat cold last week, and we saw probably 100 manatees or so at one point. It was pretty amazing. So anybody who was able to come out and see them definitely had a lot of good views for manatees.
I've been out here several times, and it's one of my favorite places to take people, to take visitors, because it is such a unique place to see manatees. And this canal spills out into the Orange River, correct?
That's correct. So for a manatee to get here to the park, they're going to leave Pine Island Sound, Estero Bay, Gulf of Mexico, any of those locations. They're going to swim up through the Clusatcha River, then they're going to turn into the Orange River, and then the Orange River, leave that and come into the canal here. And so if a manatee is leaving, that goes in the opposite direction back out towards Estero Bay, Pine Island Sound, the Gulf of Mexico again.
And when the manatees are here, how long do they stay in the canal?
It all depends. So there is no food here in the canal for manatees. We're considered a warm water refuge. The canal bottom itself is concrete. It was designed as a warm water conveyance for the power plant, so there was never a thought of, hey, we're going to attract manatees. At some point after the power plant and the canal came online in the late 50s, manatees showed up, and I have no idea when that happened. I don't know there's any records that dictate exactly when manatees showed up, but they started appearing. People got excited. They came to watch manatees long before this became a park, and that was part of the impetus for the high school students trying to encourage the county commissioners to make this a park. So the neat part is the county does lease this land for $1 a year from the Florida Power and Light Company. We have all these neat structures. During this time of year, we offer manatee programs, so you can obviously come see them, but you can also learn more about them. We have additional signage along the canal. And at other times of the year when manatees aren't here, there's other things that people can do. There's butterfly walks, there's natural habitats they can see. We have playgrounds for kids. That's always fun. We have a vendor on site that rents kayaks, so you can be on the water regardless of the time of year. There's lots of things to see here. Obviously, manatees are the biggest perk, and it's one of the things that I like about working here is obviously seeing them.
And that's the thing, is that there are ideal times to come see the manatees, but this park is open year-round. And there's so much more than coming down and seeing them.
That's correct. Yep. So ideal times are somewhere, I would say, around mid-December through mid-March. And again, it depends on the weather. So some years we've had those prolonged cold fronts, and we might see cold weather, at least for Florida, for a couple months at a time. Other years we might see cold weather for 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So each year is different. The hardest part is when people call and say, am I going to see manatees next week or the week after? I don't always know. It's all going to be dependent on the weather, which I have no control over. Even if they can come out, I mean, they may see a manatee, there's other things to see as well. But that is obviously the biggest draw. And then it's nice to be able to see manatees.
Yeah, we can't control nature at all.
No.
So can't control the dolphins, can't control the manatees or anything like that.
Manatees are mammals just like you and I, just like your cats and dogs. So there's 5 things that we as mammals have in common. So we all have body hair. Believe it or not, manatees have hair.
Oh.
Not necessarily on top of their head the way you picture a human. But they do have whiskers, just like your cats or your dogs, and obviously just like humans. They do have sparse hairs all over their body in the way that we have it on our arms and legs. They give birth to live young. So mom is pregnant roughly for 13 months and will have typically 1 calf. The calves nurse, and so they'll stay with mom for about the first 2 years of their life nursing. They breathe air with lungs just like we do. So when you're looking for manatees, the hard part is the weight. So they'll breathe on average 3 to 5 minutes if they're active, but they can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes if they're resting. So if you see a manatee and then you're standing there for a while and you don't see that manatee, you might have to be patient, which can be really difficult, especially if that manatee is going down and decide to take a little snooze. You might have to wait 20 minutes to see that manatee again. And then the last thing that manatees and all mammals have in common is that we're warm-blooded. So that means we produce our own body heat, so we're able to be warm. We generate our own body heat. For human, your average body heat is about 98.6 degrees, your body temperature. And again, those manatees, they produce their own body heat, but they do get cold like the rest of us, so they have to seek out, again, this warm water. So we're just a warm water refuge. We don't feed them. We don't throw lettuce out to them. We don't offer them fresh water. They are wild animals. They're capable of finding all of that on their own. Right now we're walking along the butterfly garden, so this starts at the north end of the canal and makes our way down to about the lagoon. So we have a lot of native plants that are installed in this garden. So if you're a butterfly enthusiast, one of the things that you need are host plants. So each butterfly is going to lay its egg on a specific plant. And as that egg hatches and becomes a caterpillar, that caterpillar is going to feed on that one specific plant. And then of course it'll go into the chrysalis stage and you'll have a butterfly emerge. And then as butterflies are flying around, they'll get nectar from various plants in here. So we have our host plants for those butterflies to lay their eggs. Then also the nectar plants for butterflies to, again, get a drink of nectar and keep flying along.
So you've been with Manatee Park for how long? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been here at Manatee Park for about 4 years now. I've worked for the County Parks and Recreation Department for a little over 15. And I went to school to work with wildlife and to observe wildlife and do what I could to help wildlife. So this is a pretty neat job that allows me to do all of that. Mm-hmm. I get to do educational programs. I work with volunteers who are dedicated to the park. I get to talk to visitors and we get to let them know more about manatees. I get to work in the butterfly garden. I learned a lot about butterflies, to be honest. I mean, I knew a little bit before, but I've definitely been able to immerse myself in that. I've learned more about manatees. It's just really neat. We get to work with other agencies. Florida Fish and Wildlife will come out and do trainings for our volunteers. If there's a manatee that's injured, they're the ones that do the rescue. You get to see a lot of neat stuff here.
And there's like this little amphitheater,
yes.
area.
So during season, we offer an educational program called All About Manatees. So we do not have live manatees at the program. We've been asked that a couple of times this year. But we do have pictures that we can show off. We have bones from deceased manatees, obviously, but ways that we can showcase what a manatee looks like, give more information about manatees, and hopefully the people that come to the program and then leave have a better appreciation and understanding for manatees.
And it's really nice outdoor seating, sort of an amphitheater style, perfect for social distancing.
It is indeed, yes. It's under a nice, beautiful live oak tree. It's one of the original trees on the property. It's somewhere between, I want to say like 250 and 350 years old.
Okay.
It's an amazing, amazing tree. And then of course people come and they learn more about manatees, which is very nice as well.
And I've seen fish. I saw a few fish. People don't try to fish here, do they? Or
we do have fishing, so that's along the Orange River at our fishing pier. Uh-huh. But we do have signs posted along the edge of the fence just to encourage people to not fish in the canal where the manatees are. This is basically an off limits. Manatees are definitely invited to come here in the canal. So right now we're here at the lagoon. So the lagoon was an addition added to the canal at some point later. I haven't found any documents that tell me when. But essentially, as manatees are swimming up the Clusatch River, into the Orange River, and then here into the canal, there's some current and there's some effort involved in that. If you're a manatee, you swim on average 3 to 5 miles an hour, up to 20 miles for short bursts. So they're not designed to be big, fast, super amazing swimmers, but I mean, they can get the job done. So when they come here to the canal, they might be cold, they're probably tired. And so this lagoon is a nice area where there's no water current, no movement going on. They can just kind of rest here and relax. And it gives a nice area for people to see manatees.
It's beautiful. There's plenty of room for people, all these different vistas, places for people to stand.
Manatees eat seagrasses, which don't move. Manatees don't really have predators, so people ask about alligators and sharks. Manatees can live in freshwater, saltwater, and brackish water, which is a mixture of the two. They don't encounter alligators or sharks very often, believe it or not. So they really don't have predators, which is why they're slow-moving animals. Their grass doesn't move. They're not really designed to run away from anybody because nobody's really chasing them. Mm-hmm. So they're a slower-moving animal than a dolphin who is chasing and actively schooling fish and then avoiding predators.
They're just pretty safe.
They are.
Safe. Everybody leaves them alone.
When I get older, I want to be a manatee, to be honest. I think they're amazing. They're just so fun to watch. And sometimes they're here and they'll kind of hang out. And other times they're moving and they're swimming. They might roll over and kind of show off their belly for a moment.
Oh.
They might kind of be in the water with their tail sticking out of it and their head pointed down. And I don't necessarily know why they're doing all those movements, but it's really fun to watch. And they definitely put on a good show, even though they're not jumping out of the water.
Do you recognize any of them from year to year, from season to season?
I will admit that I see a lot of them, and I'm not able to identify them. We have Moat Marine Laboratory, and they're contracted by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and they come out and take photos of the manatees, what they call scar photography. So they can identify the manatees year after year by their scar pattern. And so the neat part is when I talk to them, they're like, oh, this is manatee so-and-so, and they know because they've seen that animal year after year. We had one, I think last week, that they identified here that was a manatee that spends summers in like Sarasota and then winters down here, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a pretty good travel plan. I would be up for that. That's not a bad way to live. So how can we, as people, as visitors, just as good stewards, how can we help the manatees and keep them thriving?
That's a fabulous question. So manatees initially were listed on the endangered species list. So the endangered species list tracks animals that have lost roughly 80% of their population. A few years ago, so back in 2017, they were downlisted to threatened. So it means their population has slowly increased. As a mammal that reproduces relatively slowly, so mom is pregnant for a 13-month time period, nurses her calf for about 2 years, is going to have a calf roughly every 2 to 5 years. It's a relatively slow reproductive process. So their populations can be impacted by things like cold stress, which we have no control over, red tide, which is a natural event, but can be exacerbated by human activities. So trying to be better land stewards on the land in terms of our use of chemicals and things like that. And then when we're on the water, if we're fishing, bring in our fishing line, dispose of it properly. If you're boating, boat responsibly, follow the manatee signs that are out, especially this time of year.
Mind the line, I think is what they call it. Mind the line.
Mind the line. So that one of the interesting things about manatees is they have 6 vertebrae in their neck and we have 7. So manatees can essentially say yes. They can move their head up and down, but they can't move their head side to side. So they can say yes, but they can't say no. So, and that might sound weird, and why am I telling you this? So if you're on the water, you're making noise, essentially, maybe if you're in a boat, manatees can't just look over their shoulder to find out what the noise is behind them. So they have to turn their whole body, which as a slow-moving animal is not necessarily an easy feat. And that's sometimes why they encounter and have these bad issues with boats. So just being a proper, or, a responsible boater, and most people are. If you're on the water, obey, again, the signs. If you can, wear polarized glasses. That helps to cut the glare and see them more often. If you're moving in shallow areas, definitely, slow down your motor. Do what you can as you're going through to avoid hurting the manatees. If you're in areas where there's seagrass beds, avoid dragging your propeller through it because that rips up the seagrasses, and that's what manatees are eating primarily. As herbivores eat a lot of seagrasses, the average manatee will eat about 10% of its body weight a day. So if you're a 1,000-pound manatee, it's 100 pounds of food. So they need all the seagrasses out there that we can possibly leave for them. And just in general, trying to be the best stewards that we can. If there's plastic trash on the land, it might not seem like the biggest of deals. In COVID, it's a little bit harder to want to clean up after other people. But plastic waste that makes its way into the water, if they're eating lots of food, they may not see it. And they might ingest it, and that can cause problems for them.
Yeah. So do what we can to pick up when we're on the beach, because it could wind up in the water, and that's no good.
Essentially, yes. Yep, everything is connected.
It really is. I've definitely learned that in my time here in Southwest Florida. And when so say you're out kayaking, or you're kayaking here, and you encounter a manatee. I've heard of that happening where the manatee might bump your kayak. What should you do or not do?
Oh, those are great questions. So one of the best things that I've ever done is be in a kayak and be around manatees. It is an amazing experience. You're seeing them that much closer. As a human, I think we're pretty tactile. We want to touch everything. And so I'm going to admit most people want to touch manatees. It's actually illegal to do that as part of their listing under the Endangered Species Act. You can't touch them, you can't chase them, you can't harm them. They will probably come over to your kayak because they're curious. There's this big red, blue, whatever color your kayak is thing in the water, and they're like, I don't know what you are. I want to know what you are. And they might nudge it. If they're underwater and they're surfacing to take a breath and your kayak is there, they might bump you as they're surfacing, and they're potentially a big animal. And so you might feel a bump, and I would just stay calm, and the manatee will do what it needs to do as they're swimming in and out of here from the Orange River into the canal and then back out to go find food. Just take the opportunity to look at them from afar. You don't want to be on top of the manatee. You can scare them potentially. The last thing you want to do is hurt any wildlife, and I'm sure everybody coming out to kayak feels the same way.
Right.
So just observe, learn, and enjoy the experience, to be honest. They're amazing.
Yeah, they're just naturally curious like we are. So
yes, very much.
Let them check you out, and they'll kind of be on their way. Well, very good. That's good advice. I appreciate that. Do you know how big the park is?
It's 17 acres. The park itself is designed really well. So we have mostly paved sidewalks. There's a small section that is a pitch shell pathway, but for the most part, we have these paved sidewalks. We have the recycled lumber material on our boardwalk and then on our fishing pier. Go over here for a second if you want.
Yeah.
And so it provides a lot of maneuverability. So anybody, any age, we can have strollers, you have scooters, you can have other items for people that might have mobility issues come to the park. There is plenty of room for people to be at different pavilions or to stand and play in the grass or, again, to come and watch manatees. So there's a lot for people to do here. It is a really nice place to come to. And then as you watch the movement of the water, so we get the tides that come in and out, you can see the water flowing out of the canal. And then the scenery here, so we have mangroves along the edge of the water. There's houses along the south side, so lucky people get to live here along the Orange River and enjoy manatees and other aspects of this location as well. It's a really great place.
It is. It's just another place to showcase the nature of Southwest Florida.
We're very lucky here.
Got a couple of kayaks taking a little tour, it looks like. Very nice. It's a great way to spend a morning in February.
It is, definitely. And even if you come to the park and you realize that there aren't manatees, or maybe you're coming, I don't know, April, September, when we probably more than likely aren't seeing manatees, there's still a lot to see and a lot to do, enjoying the Orange River, enjoying the other beauties of the park. This is a really neat, special location.
It is. And you have a great gift shop. We can go check that out too.
Oh, let's go do that, yeah.
And we're in the gift shop. My favorite place. Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Oh, you've got new shirts. Those are nice.
Oh, yeah, I got some new stuff there.
Yeah. What's the most popular thing that people buy here?
Well, obviously the shirts sell really well if it's cold, especially the long sleeve, and then the hat shirt bundle packages as well there. They're really good. It's got a great price point on it. It's a hat and a shirt for $23.99. So, and stuffed manatees.
I've seen
Probably maybe the
manatees.
best seller is a stuffed manatee. Your choice, the spotted pink or the all natural gray. So.
We're doing a podcast. My name's Jackie.
Okay, I'm
And-
Justin.
oh, Justin, nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
So, how long have you been here?
Since June.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I guess the colder days, we have more folks
Yeah.
coming
Colder
out.
days, more come out and kayak as well as just view the boardwalks as well to see the manatees. They push down the river a little further now, so they're a little more spread out, a little harder to find, but there are definitely a few out there. So.
But the gift shop is always here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So if you don't see one on the boardwalk, you'll see one right here. So.
Exactly. And this one you can take home with you.
Exactly. You can take home to Minnesota or wherever you guys are from.
Well, thank you
so.
for letting me put a mic in
Yeah,
front of you
absolutely.
without asking.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks,
you guys have a
Justin.
good day, guys.
Okay, I'm going back there to do some shopping.
They're-
So, what's the takeaway that you would want people to have when they're finished visiting Manatee Park?
I would hope that after they come to the park, if they don't know anything about manatees, or maybe this is on their bucket list to see a manatee, that they leave understanding how manatees function in the greater system and how all living things are connected. So even things that we do on land for a water-based animal, they can have impacts. So something as simple, like I said, picking up garbage, keeping it out of the water body, just being good stewards of the land. Those little things that you do, and even the big, especially the big things that you do, definitely helps a manatee. So when you come here and see them, hopefully that gives you that good sense of, I've done my little part. This animal is here, it's alive. It's a really nice feeling. And of course, it's nice to come and see them, watching manatees, staring at the water, watching them breathe and kind of roll and play, and just moving slowly but gracefully. It also gives that nice kind of zen
It does.
feel.
It does.
So you leave hopefully happier. I always leave happier after seeing them, to be honest.
Well, you certainly are happy, very enthusiastic about the manatees. So, yeah, just little things that we can do to help these big manatees is really the takeaway, and that's terrific. Laura, thank you so much for giving us a tour, and we really appreciate it, and we look forward to having more people come visit Manatee Park.
Thank you for coming out today. We appreciate the visit. We love sharing our knowledge of manatees and the experience of seeing them with other people. So thank you.
And people can check out a website for Manatee Park, I do believe.
That's correct. So if you go onto leeparks.org, you can search for Manatee Park amongst the list of all the county parks, and then you'll be able to find more information about the park. We have on there items like, for younger kids, there's a coloring book. For slightly older kids, there's a workbook. You can get a poster that has a manatee on the front and interesting anatomical information on the back. There's one that talks more about manatees, other manatees of the world. You can even learn about butterflies, since we have our butterfly garden. There's a lot of good resources on there.
And you can download that from the website.
Exactly.
That's great. Very good. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun for people who can't get there, just immediately. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of Shellcast. Again, thank you, Laura Carr, for giving us a tour. And thanks to our colleague, Courtney Herschel, for the theme music. Shellcast, the podcast of the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel, is produced by the Lee County Visitor and Convention Bureau in Fort Myers, Florida. Shellcast is available wherever fine podcasts are downloaded and at fortmyers-sanibel.com. You can also follow Shellcast on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for an episode of Shellcast, please email us at shellcastthepodcast@gmail.com. I'm Jackie Parker. Thanks for listening to Shellcast, and we'll catch you again next time.
Consider this your soundtrack to a drive, and your car the escape vehicle to the kind of place that feels worlds away, but is closer than you think. Because at the end of the open road, some things are better experienced than explained. Know the feeling on the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel.